Hi folks, Bram here from Coast Outdoors. Today, let's talk leashes. Whether you're stand-up paddling, outrigger paddling, surfski paddling, it's really important to use a leash whenever you're on the water. The reason we want to use a leash is that if you end up in the water, especially if there's any amount of wind, if you're not wearing a leash, your craft can get away from you a lot faster than you think it should be able to, which is not a nice feeling. There's a bunch of different leashes out there, and we want to make sure we're using the appropriate leash for what we're doing. So first we'll talk stand-up paddleboard leashes, sup leashes. They typically come in two different styles, straight or coiled. If I'm surfing and in really rough water, I'm going to be using a straight leash that will allow the board to sort of run down a wave away from me, but then once it goes tight, it's not going to tangle up once it untensions. So typically we'll use straight leashes for surf. And they come in different lengths, and this one happens to be an 8-foot. We want to be pretty close in terms of our leash length to the length of our board. So if I'm surfing on my 7'10" surf sup, I'm going to be using an 8-foot leash that allows me to get over the nose, like if I'm falling off the front of the board. But you don't want your leash to be so long that your board gets really far away from you, potentially endangering other surfers. For flat water stand-up, we would normally go to a coil. That way I don't have this leash dangling in the water behind me that's going to be collecting seaweed or debris or whatever. Using a coil keeps everything sort of on the board to me, and then if I do end up in the water, this will stretch out, allow the board to get away from me, but it's easy to get back. So for flat water stand-up, I'd usually go with a coil instead of a straight leash. If we are in a surfski or outrigger canoe, we're going to be using a coil, but obviously we don't want this big long leash collecting under our feet in the footwell, so our outrigger and surfski leashes are going to be quite a bit shorter than what we would be using for stand-up. With stand-up, it needs to be long enough, even with the coil, to sort of stretch from your standing area to the tail of the board, which might be 7 feet away, where in an outrigger canoe or a surfski, this leash is going to be connected right under my feet. So with any of our leashes, they don't last forever. UV is hard on everything, so it's important to be inspecting your leash for any cracks or damage before every paddle, and you do want to replace your leash every year or two because they will wear out with UV, and you don't want to be in a position where your leash is breaking on you.